My name is David M. Miller. The family's been probably around here for 100 years, and we always grazed everything we could.
Calves here. It's just a little dark yet you turn the cows out.
This is the way I feed my bull calves. The heifer calves are out in the hoop building with nurse cows. This way of farming has a value in the next generation, what we try to teach our children. That's actually, well, maybe what we work for is for the future. Every calf gets a name when it's born, and then it'll have a name for the rest of its life. That's Happy, that's Karen, that's Emmeline, the one back there is Jasmine. We have this standard that we need to graze a certain amount, but I like to graze. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's just the quality of the milk you just cannot beat. You have a lot better omega-3 and 6 ratio, and your CLAs are a lot higher. We do not use any hormones, any chemicals, any antibiotics. I've heard guys complaining after a big rain how, oh, it washed the fields. Well, I do not have that issue because I don't have any bare soils. If you ask me, the closer you walk with nature, the better nature will treat you.
Good evening. Welcome to our June Community Conversations. I'm your host, Emily Baxter, and you've just viewed a professional video that was shot of highlighting one of our farms in Kalona, Iowa. The farm that's featured in this video, it's only a few miles from our production facility, and the organization who created the video was one that we sold milk to in the past. When we have a surplus of milk, we sell to various food manufacturers who are looking for excellent milk supply. And these manufacturers produce a variety of products, including cheese, yogurt, baked goods, and even baby formula. So June is National Dairy Month, and we want to celebrate the wonderful work that our farmers do. So throughout this conversation, please ask questions. We want to be able to answer those questions, and we're here to just show you an inside look into the small family farms that produce milk for Kalona SuperNatural. So tonight, I also have with me Sam Ingersoll, our marketing manager at Kalona SuperNatural, and then we have Joe Miller, our brand and sales manager with us. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, welcome.
It's good to be with you again.
Good. So now, Joe, I understand that you've worked with farmers since you were a child. So what have you learned in working with farmers?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, we lived in a farming community, and my dad would offer local farmers when they wanted to go on vacation, we would go help do their milking for a week, or we would do their milking, feed the cows, feed the calves, all that stuff. So everything from feeding a calf a milk bottle to feeding the cows, cleaning the barn, and milking the cows at 4 a.m. in the morning. I was there. I was there helping out, helping my dad milk for these farmers. And one of the things I learned from a young age, that farming's hard work, and it takes a full commitment of these farmers. they're on call 24/7, 365. And during the busy season, spring with cow calving, summer with hay and other feed harvesting, and fall with cow calving again, they're working long, thankless days. It has its own beauty. Right behind us here is a picture of one of our farms, and you can see the beauty of the farm. Cows out on pasture, just the serenity of a farm. It has its own blessings, but it's a lot of hard work. And yeah, I learned to appreciate that early on, where my food came from, where my milk came from, and the work that went into it.
Right. Yeah. Now, Sam, I got to ask you about this term that you use because I think some people might have to Google it. But so I've heard you refer to our farms as being an ecological oasis. So explain that terminology, and then why do you refer to it in that way?
Yeah, that means a couple of things for me. First of all, I grew up mostly on and off a farm. We didn't have cows, but we had lots of goats. So the milking schedule is a little bit different, a little less intensive than for cows. We had pigs and chickens and ducks and everything else. So partly for me, referring to our farm as the ecological oasis reflects my desire for that kind of peace and serenity that Joe spoke about, that I experienced in my childhood. The other thing is that in much of the Midwest, if you drive through large sections of the Midwest in the spring before things have grown up, you'll see brownfield after brownfield after brownfield after brownfield. But here in Kalona and the areas where our farms are, those brown patches of dirt, which are plowed with GMOs and herbicides and all kinds of things, are interspersed with or broken up by these patches of these large pastures, lush green pastures like you see in the photo here, that are largely organic farms, and they're real oases from typically what you'll see driving across the Midwest. It's very beautiful, and it's the source of our food.
Right. Well, that kind of leads into a good question. So we have a question from a viewer. Elise wants to know, how many farmers do you support? So how many farmers are we looking at in Kalona?
Probably, well, there's around 65 that provide the source for our milk. Most are Amish and Mennonite. Most, or about half of them, are right around the Kalona area. A few are south in Bloomfield. There are a few others interspersed out there. As bigger dairies, as bigger companies let go of farms that are a little bit more difficult to work with because they don't have a lot of modern technology, we tend to pick them up and support them. So, but most are right here around Kalona.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about those farms is our average herd size is 35 to 40 cows. So we're talking about small family farms where, well, you heard David Miller, and for those watching, if you didn't hear it, when the replay comes out or when this goes up on Facebook, I really encourage you to play that first, it's about 3-minute video, 2.5-minute video, where David Miller talks about his farm, and he talks about the names of his cows, and that's a very common thing amongst our farms because they're part of the family. They're 35 to 40 cows isn't very many, and we're talking about small family farms.
It has real benefits. It has real benefits for the cows beyond sort of affectionately naming them and making them part of the family. It's really important to the welfare of the animals. So in many places, they're big herds. The dairy people don't know if a cow's sick. Well, our farmers know their cows and their personalities and how they interact. And if one's a little off, they can see it right away. Same way you would, if your daughter or son got sick or was feeling in a bad mood even, or just having an off day, they can really tell that.
Yeah, cows have their unique personalities. It's very interesting watching a farmer. I know we're going to have some more photos and some video clips of some of our farms coming up, so stick with us here. But it's very interesting watching a farmer work with his cows, and they're not part, they don't just have a number. They're part of the family. And they know if Betsy's behaving differently than what she normally behaves. So Emily, I got a question for you. You came to the farming community. Well, first of all, you came to Kalona as a consumer.
Right.
You learned about us. We're enjoying our products, and that was really your experience, introduction into the farming community.
Mm-hmm.
What surprised you, or what was the most interesting thing you learned about our farms as you started working with us?
Yeah. So, yeah, I started, it was probably around 2013 that I was first introduced to Kalona SuperNatural products. And it was in 2014, they put a post out on Facebook. They were celebrating their 10-year anniversary of Kalona Organics. And they invited people to come out to the farms and, go on some tours and things like that. So my family, we kind of jumped on that. We thought, well, we've been eating this yogurt and cottage cheese for a while now. Let's go see this, big manufacturer here. And the most surprising thing to me was that it is small. I mean, I'd been to Kalona before. I knew it was a farming town, but to go to the production facility and see how small it actually is, and just know how many stores milk comes right from this from the cows, from the farmers to the production facility, and just totally widespread, east to west, north to south. That blew my mind. I expected to see a very large warehouse production facility.
Yeah, no, it's truly our production, our focus on the products is as unique and as small as what our farmers are on paying attention to doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say we definitely don't name the bottles, but I think that we have some stainless steel tanks that have names back there.
Right?
Sure.
Well, so let's go ahead and give them a brief glimpse on a day in the life of one of our farmers. So, few hectic attributes of modern life have made it to this corner of the world. These farmers use traditional methods of farming. A culture of simplicity and traditional ways ensure family survival in a global economy. David Miller's small farm, located in Kalona, Iowa, is one of several dozen that provides milk for Kalona SuperNatural. The farm has been in David's family for over 100 years. The entire family works together to raise crops and animals for themselves and for other community members. Waking early in the morning means lighting a kerosene lantern or using a flashlight to find his way out to the barn. Many of these farms do not have electricity running to the house or barn. So as David starts the generator to power his milking machine, he enjoys the beautiful sunrise splashing the sky with color over his fields. He hopes for a dry day as we are in the middle of the hay harvesting season, and he needs the warm sun and breeze to dry out the grass. He uses a more modern milking system instead of hand milking the cows as his father and grandfather did. Using a milking machine allows for more gentle milking of the cow and is much easier on him as well. The milking takes about 45 minutes to milk his 32 cows. The milk goes into a stainless steel tank, which is chilled to keep the milk cold and fresh for the creamery to pick up later that day. The cows head back out to the pasture, where they will enjoy for several hours before the sun really begins to get hot and they want to come back into the greenhouse style hoop barn for shade. They will head back out to pastures after the afternoon milking. After the morning milking, David spends several hours cutting the grass. He uses a tender to fluff the grass up to ensure that the grass laying on the bottom of the pile also has the opportunity to dry. David and his neighbor both need to get done baling by mid-afternoon so they can milk their cows for the second milking. The cows won't be happy if he's late, and unhappy cows don't produce as much or as good of quality milk. Both are important when you have this small of a farm. Because of the commitment our farmers make to ensure the cows are treated well and fed well, we can produce quality organic products that our consumers love to enjoy. Our farmers are the foundation of our products, and we are so grateful for their commitment and for their support. So if you are just joining us, we're celebrating our farmers this month. These farmers who supply that wonderful organic grass-fed milk that makes Kalona SuperNatural really, really unique. So it all starts with those grass-fed cows. So I want to ask some more questions. Joe, why grass? Why do we insist that these cows are fed grass? And just why is it so important for the cow's health as well?
It's a great question. And first of all, to really answer the question, we need to talk about why a farmer would feed a grain intensive diet. It goes back to convenience. We actually have a little video here. Let me just bring it up while we're talking so those watching can enjoy it. Sorry. I was a little distracted. I had this video I wanted to get up for people to see and enjoy. Some of our cows on David Miller's farm enjoying some grass. So back to your question, Emily. Sorry about that. Like you were talking about, like you asked, why do our farmers feed, or why is it important that they feed grass? Conventional dairy farms, even conventional organic farms, feed a high grain intensive diet. This boosts the milk production from the farm. So the cows eat a lot of grain, they get a lot of energy, they produce more milk. It's more convenient, and it requires less ground space. If you have a pasture, you need plenty of ground space, plenty of acreage for the cows to get out, to get plenty of grass to get a full diet. Grass gives the cow grass is better for the cow's digestive system, produces a more nutrient dense milk, healthier cows, and ultimately it also is better for the environment. Lower carbon output. Sorry, I'm just distracted by those beautiful cows. Lower carbon output, and it less water runoff, increases the density of the soil. There's a lot of environmental benefits to pasture grazed, grass-fed cows.
Mm-hmm. And one question that we have, and it looks like we just put an answer in the comment, what is the definition of grass? So when you say grass, what do you mean specifically?
That's a great question. And grasses are a combination of legumes. So like hay, you may hear of alfalfa hay at times when you hear people talking about grasses, but it's also the same style of grasses as what you're seeing out in your lawn. Those leafy plants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how to describe them better. Sam, do you have any further descriptions around that?
Yeah, most people just look and they think whatever's out there is grass. So it's pretty. We could go into this in depth, but there's a difference between grass, which typically has long stems. Some of the grasses are planted because they have deep root systems that help maintain the soil and the ability of the soil to retain water. And then there are legumes, which are generally broadleaf plants like clovers. Our farmers plant grass to, it's like they're putting on a salad bar for the cows. And they want that salad bar to be out there as long as possible. So some grasses grow better in the spring, some grow better in the fall. Some are more drought resistant or resistant to less water. So those are typically planted in the summer. And then there's a couple different kinds. There's our native Iowa grasses, and then also European grasses. There's probably about 16 different kinds in most of our fields. things like big blue stem, Indian grass, cordgrass, switchgrass, little blue stem. If I had my stuff, I would show like pictures of each one, and we could go dive into grasses. But I don't know if everybody liked that or not.
This is why I threw it to Sam, because I knew that he would have all these technical names. But Sam made some good points of why they choose the different grasses.
Mhm.
I'll say the other thing is different grasses have different energy outputs or protein outputs that the farmer needs. And then sometimes it comes as simple, and this is one of the things I think Sam was referencing, is what grows the best to get a year-round green grass, year-round energy-rich grass. So
Mhm.
a lot of it has a mix of the native grasses that would have been the old prairie grasses from, you know, pre pre modern times, or before we really got in and started harvesting the grasses. Those grasses that had naturally grown there that were great for the environment, our Midwest Iowa environment.
Yep. And then they
Mhm.
brought in some from Europe. Lots of the breeds of cows are European breeds,
Mm-hmm.
so they do real well here in the United States as well, and the cows like it.
Hmm. So you talked about, that they're planting different kinds at different seasons, in the spring and in the summer. So then in the winter, when we don't have grass or the grass is covered by snow, what are the cows eating then?
Basically the same things. It's the diet that's good for the cows, and so what? Actually, I see you showing the video here. This is David Miller's farm again. The grass had grown. We had a lot of rain. The grass had grown very high in the spring. The cows were not able to eat all of it, and so what he's actually doing here is baling it up for the winter, and then he replanted it the other day with grass that will grow better in the summer when there's less rain.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
So,
So it's the same stuff, really.
okay. So that kind of leads into one of our questions here and the question, it's so good. It says, so does winter milk taste different? So I was actually just going to I was going to ask Joe that, because I've heard consumers talk about specifically butter. I've heard consumers, they wait for spring butter because the color is even brighter, a brighter yellow, and that the taste. I mean, they'll just stock up on it and freeze it to last them the rest of the year. But tell us why that is.
Yeah. So I think, yes, there is a slight taste difference between the two. You're going to have to really be discerning on milk flavors to notice a big difference between the seasons. Because, again, coming back to Kalona SuperNatural's way, or Kalona's way of doing it, is we want our cows to be fed a consistent grass diet year round. So during the winter time, they're fed, as Sam was mentioning, the store grasses. But during the summertime, they're fed fresh grasses. The biggest difference that you'll get is you will get higher levels of beta carotene from fresh grasses. And that's a big reason why. And so it turns a little yellower, a little more gold color.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the big reasons why consumers will wait, because they love to get milk from the cows when they're out on pasture and not when they're being fed stored grasses. Obviously, we want to feed and we want the cows to get the best diet year round. But we're going to keep feeding them grasses during the winter, but those fresh grasses that produce the most nutrient dense milk does come in the spring and in the summer.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned out on pasture. So I want to touch on that just a little more, or flip it a little bit, because our milk is certified organic. Tell me what the specifics are for that. What do you need to be certified organic, and what our Kalona SuperNatural farmers do to meet those standards?
Yeah, so all of our farms are certified organic. And in fact, we talked already about the 65 dairy farms that we work with. Many of them have been in their family for well over 100 years. and are documented to have never been sprayed with herbicides or pesticides, never have used chemicals, and really that's the basis of organic certification. Is no chemical inputs into the production, into the process of feeding, of working the soils, no herbicides, pesticides, no artificial inputs into your feed system. It's those natural certified organic ways. Organic has taken some great steps over the last 10 years to solidify the animal welfare side of the cows, requiring that they get access to pasture through a during for a very brief period during the summer. We ask our farms and we ask them, we encourage them and ask them more directly that they give their cows more access to the pasture, that they're feeding them whenever the grass growing season is going on, that the cows are out on pasture getting their their feed directly from the pasture. But the organic does require that the cows get access to the outdoors, that they get access to an outdoor paddock so the cows can be outside.
Mm-hmm.
We try to take that further by setting a little higher standard for our farms and then follow it up with our production process.
Mm-hmm. Well, so if I'm reading right, the standard would be 120 days out on pasture. So how many days would you say that our standard is on Kalona SuperNatural?
Yeah, it depends on the year.
Mm-hmm.
We want the cows if the grass is growing, we want the cows to be out on pasture. I would say typically that's going to start somewhere about the beginning of March and go through October.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 6 months, 7 months, 180 days.
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
Yeah, give or take a bit.
Cool.
It's hard to say because we don't set that hard standard of how many days they have to be out. Besides, obviously, they have to meet the organics certification. But ours is a more comprehensive thing of how are you taking care of the cows?
Right.
Are they getting their feed from the pasture when the grass is growing? We say it's pasture grazed. We want those cows out on pasture, enjoying the fresh sunshine, enjoying that energy-rich fresh grass whenever possible. So it's as much of an animal welfare as it is a nutritious milk for us.
Yeah.
It's the standard. Yeah.
Right.
I'm playing with captions here as you're saying things. Yeah, our farms, for me, certification of our farms organic is basically a bunch of paperwork that puts the stamp of approval on what our farmers have been doing for generations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very, very good. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're new to our conversation, if you're just joining us, we are celebrating our farmers this month. June is National Dairy Month, and we're just telling you what our farmers do to produce that unique, that lovely, deliciously creamy taste from Kalona SuperNatural. We've had a few questions already, but I would encourage you to put any questions you have into the comments, and we'll try to get to those. We want this to be open, and we want to answer what you've been wondering. So we'll keep going. We've talked about grass-fed cows. We've talked about certified organic. So let's go into the processing. So, Joe, talk more about how the dairy's processed. The cows make it, the creamery picks it up, and then what happens?
Yes. Well, before I answer your question, Emily, I just got a call out. I'm sorry. I saw this one. Sam put it up for a little bit, and I love it. Thanks a lot, Cindy. She says, I'm not a fan of them. I'm not a big fan at all, but I absolutely love yours.
Oh, that's funny. How's that possible?
Oh, that is definitely possible. I can speak to that as well. My kids love the Kalona SuperNatural milk, and it's that whole. I'll go back. It's Yeah, I've used this statement when I'm talking to some dairy buyers, but when I'm talking to our farmers, I've said it before. Sam, you've heard me share it with our farmers. They produce the best milk. It's
Mhm.
Kalona SuperNatural's job not to mess it up. And, it's very easy to overprocess the milk. Why would you want to overprocess the milk? Because you can ship it all over the country. Ultra high temp pasteurization heats the milk up over 280 degrees, kills the milk, kills everything in the milk, but it also affects the taste. And our whole focus with our milk is to minimally process it, allow the milk to naturally shine. Milk is delicious of
Mhm.
itself. And okay, let's be honest. We've all had vegetables as kids that we did not like. Hopefully, you've had the chance to experience some of those vegetables as an adult, cooked or roasted or raw in a different way. And you're like, I didn't know lima beans can taste this way. I didn't know Brussels sprouts could taste this way. You know, and suddenly you go, wow, this is so much different, so much fresher, better than what I tasted when I was a kid. That's really what we do with our milk. It's that minimal processing. So we start out with, when we get the milk, we have to pasteurize it by law, by federal law, in order to sell it across state lines and even within the state of Iowa. We have to pasteurize it by state law. So we pasteurize it to the lowest temp allowable. Milk comes out of the cow at around 102 degrees. We heat it up to 145 degrees to pasteurize it. That makes the milk safe by federal determination, makes the milk safe to drink, but it doesn't destroy the milk, the natural
The
nutrient
enzyme,
balance
right?
and
Yeah.
the enzymes of the milk. Yes, the enzymes are a big part. We don't destroy the natural enzymes, the nutrient balance of the milk. The protein structure is destroyed with the low temp pasteurization. Then, to take it one step further, neither do we homogenize it. Homogenization is breaking up those fat molecules so they stay suspended in the milk. You never have to shake the milk. Our milk, the cream naturally separates to the top. And I've told people already, shake it well. Separation's natural. It's just a natural part of milk.
Mhm.
Does that affect the nutrition of the milk? That's disputed. Different people will do believe that the milk is more nutritious whenever it's not homogenized. But I will say, I do know it affects the flavor of the milk because we're processing it less. We're allowing the milk to just naturally be what it was meant to be. And consumers, oh, like Cindy, sorry, Cindy, consumers like her and my kids just love it because it tastes so fresh and so delicious.
Mhm. Yeah, and I really like what you said that um, our job in the production part of it is to not mess it up. To keep it as natural as those farmers who work so hard,
Yeah.
work with those cows and work so hard to produce and to get that milk. Our job is to not mess it up. I like that a lot.
Yep.
Um, there's been some questions about, how big is a grazing, how big is a farm? How big of an area do the cows have to graze on? And it looks like an answer here, they range they range, of course, but about 2.2 to 2.5 acres is kind of a typical farm, would you say?
No, that's an acre. Somebody asked the question whether help city folks understand how big is an acre compared to a city block,
Right.
and it's usually not quite twice as big.
Okay.
I just think, Joe, it's the best way to envision it. Not quite twice as big as a city block. So David Miller's farm for 65 cows is maybe 145 acres, maybe.
Yeah. It's typically
Size.
our farms are going to have around 2 acres per cow.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But this is the thing about pasture grazing. It's not an easier way of farming.
Mhm.
So we pay our farmers more for all the work they put into it. It's not an easier way of farming. It looks like when you see those cows out on pasture, um, it looks like it should. Oh well, you just put the cows out. You don't have to feed them.
We'll put them out.
There's the pasture. Yeah.
There's a lot more management to it, and
Mhm.
you need a lot more land for the amount of cows you have, so that you have enough land to be able for the cows to be able to get grass. But that means that we're not overworking the soil. We're not stripping the soil. Our farmers aren't stripping the soil of all of its nutrients.
Mhm. Yeah. That just points out my cityness when I say, "Oh, it's 2.5 acres. That's a good sized farm." And you're like, "No, no, no.
Well, like,
Per cow." Oh, okay, cool. See, that's why I was a consumer, and then I started learning the inside stuff.
Yeah.
it's complicated. Lots of, I think the impression of some people, and it was, I did a lot of stuff when I was a kid, but then I moved away and I lived in San Diego and Philadelphia, and so I kind of lost touch with my farming roots. Back here in Iowa now, I think it's easy to kind of think, well, this is kind of simple, right? You just turn the cows out, right? But farming is incredibly complex. Soil health and animal welfare, animal health, even the production of food is really scientifically intense. The farmers, there was a meeting just the other day. I was at farmers. There's about 30 of them. Just a room off the workshop with wood benches and tables. We brought a bunch of our chocolate milk and cheese curds. They love those. But there was all kinds of discussion, not just of the rain, but soil health and what kind of grasses they were using and who was rotating what pastures at what time to get the most out of it. It's pretty interesting, and those guys are real smart. It's funny how they've got a lot less information from the outside world that we do via our computers and phones, but they're very aware when it comes to environmental issues and animal welfare.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so along those lines, so how long does a cow produce milk? How long are they in service?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sam. Did you?
I like to go after. So look, on a conventional dairy farm where they're packed in barns and they're stuffed full of grain and they're pumped with GMOs and vaccines and all kinds of junk, 2 to 3 years, it wears them out. And one of the reasons, this is my favorite topic. Joe doesn't like it when I go negative. But when cows are fed a heavy grain-fed diet, it essentially tricks their digestive system into drought survival mode. So their acidity in their stomach pumps up, and it wears them out. Wears them out in 2 to 3 years. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But ours, what, 13, 14 years, 10 to 14 years, depends.
I would say our average is probably 10 to 12 years. Our farmers, our cows are living. You got to remember a year in the life of a cow is about 16 to 18 years.
Wow.
So, no, that's not right. Maybe it's 9 years. I was getting it wrong. So, but either way, a cow, on a conventional farm, Sam's absolutely right. 2 to 4 years because of the low stress environment that our cows are in and the different atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
10, 12, some are 15 years.
Yeah.
But the average is probably 10 to 12 years.
Okay.
Much, much longer.
Yeah.
So drink organic milk.
Right.
From small family farms, not conventional milk.
So let's bring it back to those small family farms. I know, Sam, you have more information to tell us about, what do these farms, what effect do they have on their rural community?
Oh, gosh. Well, this is one of my favorite economic topics. For those people that follow the farm and agriculture industry and what's been going on in our country, most rural communities have been shrinking since the 1900s, right? Midwest dairy farm losses used to be 3 to 5% per year. Now they're probably hovering at 6 to 7%. Part of that's migration to cities, mechanization of farms, the growth of big agribusiness companies that and put small farms out of business. But in our case, our Amish small family farms are really the backbone of our rural community that is still thriving and doing very well. So we don't go out and survey and count everybody, right? But like the population of Kalona, Iowa is 2,000, and there are estimates from 10 years ago there were 1,200 Amish in the community. So they really serve as just a backbone of stability in a crazy changing world. And it's provided enough stability to where, you know, the Kalona area is growing, and it's thriving and very successful. And I mean, I think a really important thing for people listening to know is that their purchases of Kalona SuperNatural products support that.
Right.
Without us building a creamery and then sales and distribution and hiring a guy like Joe to knock on doors and get products into stores, and then consumers valuing minimally processed grass-fed organic dairy, these farms would have a really hard time existing. We manage a lot of other farms, a lot of other similar farms for another company, not be named, and are really critical to the survival of dozens and dozens and dozens of farms. I'd say there are well over 600 farms across the country that otherwise have a very tough time surviving. And these farms, again, are the cornerstone of communities that are thriving because they exist. It's really important. So I really want to thank people out there listening for buying our products. It has an impact on your health and your cooking and the environment, and a lot of families and a lot of small communities' lives.
Right. Right. Well, and as we finish up tonight, kind of a last call here for questions. If you have any additional questions, put them there in the comments, and we can address those before we finish up. But I really appreciate you, Joe and Sam, for joining me tonight. And I think it's easy to just go to the store and you get your milk, right? And that's where milk comes from. But knowing the background and knowing, you know, where our milk actually comes from, and just the importance that those farmers have, I'm really grateful for them. I'm really grateful for those small family farms who produce that delicious milk.
Me too.
So, So next month, we're going to have another community conversation in July. So just pay attention to our Facebook page to see the date and time on that. And then, Sam, would you tell them about our the cooking classes that we're partnering with?
Yeah, well, everything we've talked about is really exciting and important, and it's nice to have adults talk about it. But we're also partnering with a company called Sticky Fingers, which they conduct cooking classes for kids around the country, in person and online, for hundreds of thousands of kids. And we're partnering with them to introduce free cooking classes for kids. And as part of those classes, they're not just going to be cooking, they're going to be using Kalona SuperNatural products. And they often talk about the source of the food, why our small farms are important, why minimally processed is important. I'll probably be out on a farm during at least one of the classes with the cows while the kids are cooking, so it should be a lot of fun. Those will start popping up on our Facebook feed in the next day or so, as soon as I get around to setting them all up. So we hope if you have kids, you'll join us for those. They're mid to late July into the start of August.
Well, and I've already started, I believe the first one, I don't have the date in front of me, but the first one is to me, it looks like the makings of a meal. So it's like little spaghetti pies, I think, and the bread. So I've already got that on the calendar for my 8-year-old, for Lucy. She's going to be making us dinner that night. I'll buy the ingredients, and we can watch the class and make dinner together. So we're excited about that.
It's July 15th.
Perfect.
Yep. Everybody's welcome.
Awesome. Okay. Well, any final thoughts from you fellas?
No, just thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks to our farmers. I know they don't have social media, but we'll say it here. And thanks to you, our fans and supporters who are supporting our farmers through purchases of Kalona SuperNatural. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Emily. You did a great job. Keep Sam and I corralled.
Well, I've learned. All right. We'll see you all in July. Thanks so much for joining us.
See ya.
Bye.